There is an old woman who lives a few blocks away from my house. Most people walk past her street without noticing anything unusual. The houses look the same, the sidewalks are clean, the lights come on at dusk, just like everywhere else. But if you walk slowly, if you pay attention, you might notice one house that feels quieter than the rest. Her house has a door that opens only once a day, a window that stays lit long after others go dark, and a chair placed carefully near that window, facing the front door, as if someone might still arrive. I never knew her name at first. I only knew her presence. I would see her in the evenings, sitting still, hands folded, eyes fixed on the street, not watching traffic, not watching neighbors, waiting in a way that doesn't rush time, because time has already taught you patience. One winter evening, curiosity finally pushed me to ask a neighbor about her. That's when I learned something that stayed with me. Her children stopped visiting her after Christmas 2012. Not after a fight, not after an argument anyone remembers clearly, just after. One Christmas came, and then no other Christmas followed. This is not a story about anger. It's not about villains or loud betrayals. It's about quiet forgetting, about days that pass without phone calls, about holidays that slowly lose their meaning. Tonight, I want to tell you her story, not because it is unique, but because it is painfully common. Before we continue, if stories like this touch something deep inside you, please like this video, subscribe to Grandma Stories Studio, and share it with someone you love. And as you listen, if any part feels familiar, leave a comment. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. This is the story of a woman who kept a chair by the door long after the footsteps stopped coming, and it begins in the winter of 2012.
Winter arrived early that year. December 2012 wrapped the neighborhood in quiet snow, and for a brief moment, her little house felt full again. Cars lined the street outside her home, more than she'd seen in years. Tires crunching over ice, doors slamming, voices rising, overlapping, laughing. For that one evening, the house with the quiet window remembered how to breathe. She had spent the entire day preparing. The tree stood by the window, decorated carefully with ornaments collected over decades. Some were chipped, some were handmade. Each one carried a memory she still knew by heart. She cooked more food than she needed because mothers never learn how to cook less. The table was set early, long before anyone arrived. She kept checking the clock. When her children finally walked through the door, snow clinging to their coats, she didn't complain about the cold or the mess. She smiled. She hugged them longer than necessary. She memorized the weight of their presence, the sound of their footsteps moving through rooms that had grown used to silence. The house filled with conversation, stories from work, complaints about traffic, plans for futures that didn't seem to include her. She listened more than she spoke. She always had. She noticed the small things, phones checked during dinner, glances at watches, conversations drifting toward departure times. But she ignored it. She told herself that being together, even briefly, was enough. When the evening ended, coats were gathered, goodbyes spoken, promises made. "We'll come again soon. Let's not wait so long next time." She waved until the last car disappeared down the street. Then she closed the door slowly, gently, as if shutting it too fast might erase what had just happened. Christmas morning arrived quietly. Plates remained stacked in the sink. Ornaments reflected her alone in the room. She made herself tea and sat in the chair by the window, watching the empty street. She didn't know it then, but that night would become a memory she returned to again and again. Because that Christmas in 2012 wasn't just a visit. It was the last time her children came.
After Christmas 2012, nothing ended suddenly. There was no argument, no final phone call. Life simply moved forward, just without her included. January came with snow and silence. At first, she told herself it was normal. The holidays were over. People were busy. Children had lives of their own now. She repeated those thoughts like prayers, especially on mornings when the house felt too still. She kept her routines carefully, as if order could replace presence. Every morning, just after 8, she opened the front door to collect the newspaper. She stood there a moment longer than necessary, scanning the street, half expecting a familiar car to appear. It never did. She watered the plants by the door, even the one that had stopped growing. On Thursdays, she walked to the grocery store, carrying a list written neatly in careful handwriting. Bread, milk, soup. She learned to shop lightly. Cooking for one teaches you restraint, whether you want it or not. Inside, nothing changed. Photos stayed on the walls. Shoes by the door remained untouched. The spare bedroom stayed ready. She told herself it would be used again soon. She reached for the phone often in those months. Sometimes she dialed and hung up before it rang. Sometimes she left messages that were cheerful and brief. Days passed without replies. When calls did come, they were short, distracted, rushed. She learned not to ask questions. Spring arrived, but the silence stayed. Birthdays came and went. She mailed cards with careful words, avoiding phrases like, "I miss you." She didn't want to be a burden. By winter 2014, the chair by the window had become her place. Each evening, she watched lights turn on in other homes. Families moved behind curtains, shadows passed, laughter drifted through the cold air. She watched it all from a distance. Waiting became part of her day, the way meals and sleep once had been. And still, she believed it was temporary, because hope, even when it hurts, is hard to let go of. By 2015, the silence had settled like dust everywhere she looked. She still reached for the phone, but less often now, not because she didn't want to call, but because she had learned the pain of unanswered messages. Hope could keep you awake at night, listening for a sound that never came. When she did call, her voice was light, careful, cheerful, just checking in, hope you're doing well. No need to call back right away. Most of the time, the phone stayed silent. When it rang, it was usually someone asking for something, an insurance reminder, a charity, a wrong number. Each time, her heart jumped before reality settled in. She stopped leaving long messages. She avoided asking questions that might require real answers. Birthdays became quiet rituals. Cards were mailed early, cheerful but distant. Sometimes she received a short reply, "Thanks, Mom." Sometimes, nothing at all. Rejection whispered, she realized. It told her she was optional. She never complained to neighbors. "They're busy," she said, smiling, even as the emptiness grew. At night, she turned on the television, not to watch, but to hear human sound. She returned to the chair by the window earlier each evening, watching the street.
Waiting became routine, and still no peace could fill the growing quiet. If this story feels familiar, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Someone reading them may feel seen for the first time. By 2017, the neighborhood had changed. Families moved in and out. Children grew taller. Cars came and went. Life refreshed itself, while hers remained the same. The house with the blue door stayed quiet. She moved more slowly, her steps careful. The grocery bag she carried home grew lighter. No one was unkind, but politeness does not equal connection. One winter morning she slipped on ice. A passerby helped her up and left. She didn't tell her children. Why worry them? Inside, the house carried memories. Photos on the wall faded slightly, but she still knew the stories behind every smile. Every evening she sat in the chair by the window, watching families return home. She imagined being part of them, without knowing how. Some nights she fell asleep there. Time passed quietly, folding itself into habits and waiting. And still no one noticed. Not the neighbors, not the street, not the people who once filled her house with noise. Sometimes disappearing looks like staying exactly where you are, while the world walks past. By 2019, waiting was no longer something she did, it was who she was. Mornings were for tea and the newspaper. Afternoons passed slowly with chores that gave her hands something to do while her mind stayed busy. The phone stayed on the table. She no longer checked it constantly. Instead, she listened. Hope never fully left, even as silence answered back. She cooked less, ate slowly, stopped setting extra places at the table. December returned, filled with lights and music from the outside world. She walked past it all quietly. Every evening she returned to the chair by the window. Waiting didn't feel dramatic, it felt routine, almost peaceful in a way that scared her, because letting go of waiting felt like letting go of love itself, and she wasn't ready. Winter 2020 arrived with a quiet heavier than snow. Lights blinked on houses, music floated in the streets. She sat in the chair by the window for hours, watching families inside. Her home felt impossibly empty. The tree box remained in the closet. Plates and cups waited for a gathering that would never come. She whispered into the empty room, I tried to keep the love alive, even when you stopped coming." The clock struck midnight. Hope was fragile, carried carefully. Waiting had become part of her life, identity, and love. By 2021, her house seemed almost invisible. Cars passed, people waved, hurried on. Life continued, unbroken by her absence. One morning, the newspaper stayed on the porch. Days passed. The door felt heavier. She tried to open it. Nothing changed. Weeks later, her children arrived. Too late. They faced empty echoes of a life lived in their absence. Her passing had been quiet. Her life, patient and resilient, remained a testament to love that endures even when unnoticed. If this story touches you, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone you know. Someone may need to hear this before it's too late. After her passing, her house felt emptier. Objects carried memories of love and patience. Her children found letters, gentle words filled with care. Her final words, "I understand." Understanding healed more than anger ever could. Her story reminded everyone, call your loved ones, visit them, don't take a single moment for granted. If this story touched your heart, like, subscribe, and share it with friends and family. Someone watching may need to hear this before it's too late. The house with the blue door is gone. The chair is gone. But her story lives, a reminder of patient love and quiet resilience. Too often we assume there will be another chance. Life is fragile. What she left behind was not anger, but love. Call your loved ones today. Tell them you love them. Visit them. Share your time before it's too late. And if this story touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to Grandma's Story Studio, and share it. Someone watching right now might need to hear this story. Sometimes the loudest expressions of love are silent. Sometimes they endure in patience, waiting, and grace. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is our presence, attention, and love. Until next time, take care.